There are actual job scams on Indeed right now that are taking advantage of graduates' eagerness and literally exploiting them. And I'm going to tell you about my story and how I fell victim so that you don't have to go through the same thing. Whew, child, where do I even start? So before I even get into my story, I know this is targeted at graduates who have just finished uni and they're looking for their first job. But it's also for anyone who is just new to the job market game, okay? You've never had a job before and you're looking for your first job. If any of you are in this situation, please watch this video. It is very crucial to make sure that you do not end up being taken advantage of. Okay, so now let's get into my job scam experience. My story pretty much starts out like most graduates. You know, you come out of university and you have all of these high hopes about all of these, amazing jobs that you're going to land because of the degree that you studied. And then you get into the real world and you realize, yeah, it's actually not as easy as you might think. So I went through the typical route of going through the graduate schemes, the graduate job schemes, and I realized that, wow, this is a whole different world. So most of the graduate jobs that I was going for typically consumed of, recruitment consultant type roles or a sales-based entry-level role. And yeah, it was very, very tough. A lot of the times when I went for these, graduate scheme interviews, sometimes it's like 20 candidates for one job. Like it was very competitive, and sometimes it could be very cutthroat. A lot of the times you had to interview in groups. It was always, anytime I went for any of these graduate interviews, that you were always in like big groups, and yeah, there was just a lot going on, and it was very tough. Needless to say, I wasn't getting any luck through these roles. I wasn't getting hired. These times I wasn't very good in my interview, just interviewing in general, so that might have played a part. But overall, it was just very tough, and I went for a lot of these interviews and I wasn't getting anywhere. So then I stopped applying for the graduate level roles and just went to look for just like normal jobs, like in customer service, or if it was sales or anything else, just normal jobs that weren't graduate level. And I still wasn't getting any luck. It was really, really frustrating because I had a really good CV, so I was always getting called for interviews. And to be honest, I had like interviews stacked up every week. Sometimes I'll have like 2 to 3 interviews every single week. And I'll be going for these interviews and just getting nowhere. And it became very draining over time, just like getting that constant rejection over and over and over again. And before long, it just started to weigh down on my self-esteem. Like I would be going to interviews expecting that I'm probably not going to get the job. So after 8 months of going through this hamster wheel and still not being employed, I got into a panic stage. And this is where I became completely desperate. And at this point, I would just take anything. I just needed to have a job. And lo and behold, that's when I found an entry level position on Indeed. And it was advertised as a marketing assistant position. And it was targeted for graduates, but it was an entry level role. And I thought, oh my God, this is perfect. The reason why I was excited about this particular role is because it was entry level. And most of the time, I'm sure most graduates will know, when you go and start looking for jobs, all of them say they're looking for graduates, but they want graduates with experience. And so they always wanted some kind of work experience, which I didn't have. And so because this position said it was entry level, meaning it didn't require any experience, I was like, perfect, I can just start out. I don't have that expectation of having to have experience. I have more chance of getting this job. So that's what initially hooked me on this particular position. and I applied for the role. The second thing that attracted me to the role was the salary, which now I realize was a major red flag. But at the time, I just thought this salary looks amazing. So the job stated that the salary was uncapped, which means you could earn up to 70K, it said. Which at the time I was just like, oh my God, I can actually earn something like that just being at entry level role. That was what was going on in my head. But now I realize that was a red flag, because first of all, when it says uncapped, a lot of the time, what that means is it doesn't have a base salary. And what that means is that it's commission based. We're going to get more into the commission based side of things later on in the story. But that's how they got me, and that's how they get most graduates. They start off with saying it's entry level, so a graduate with no experience will obviously want to apply to such a job. And then the salary, which is going up to 70K, that's going to blow someone's mind away. So of course they will apply for that kind of job. So that's how they lure graduates in. Within a day or two, they emailed me and they invited me for an interview. Of course, I was excited and I went for the interview. But before I get into what happened at the interview, in the email, when they invited me for the interview, they said that it was going to be a day long and that I would be shadowing one of their seniors. So at that time I was thinking, oh, well, that's great. At least they're giving me, a real good insight into what the job was going to entail. So I already knew that I would be shadowing somebody when I got to the interview itself. Now, when I got to the interview, this is when things got a bit interesting. So, as promised, I met the senior person that I was going to be shadowing. But when she came to meet me, she had her jacket on and she had her bag. And I was thinking, where is this woman going? And then she was just like, okay, follow me. And we were heading outside the office. So I was kind of really confused because I thought this was an office job. Marketing assistant, right? That's usually done in an office. And she said that we're going on the field to do the shadowing. So I was just like, you know what? I don't know how this company goes about their business. So let me just follow and see how they go about their job. Before I knew it, we were knocking on people's doors. And we were selling a particular product. So the product which we were selling, they told me what the product was that we were going to be selling, which you're going to find it really surprising. It was Netflix. And this was back in 2013 when Netflix was like no one knew about Netflix at this time. And this is why I say, when I see Netflix now, I was just like, me and Netflix go way back. Like I was rooting for Netflix from the beginning. Like we were grinding. Anyway, I digress. So we started knocking on people's doors and selling them this Netflix product as like a subscription. And that's when I realized that it was door-to-door sales. But they never mentioned that. They advertised it as a marketing assistant. So that was the scam sign number 2, right? You don't know the job you're actually doing until they actually put you out on the field. And that's when I realized it was door-to-door sales. And I was just like, are you actually kidding me? And so we were doing this for the whole day from I think I arrived at the interview, was it 9 or 9:30 in the morning? And we were doing it to 8 o'clock at night. So it was like a whole day. We were just going up and down to people's doors, going upstairs, downstairs. I was exhausted and I wasn't even in the right footwear. I was wearing heels. And throughout the whole thing, this is another psychology tactic that they use. The senior professional kept going on about, how much she's been making since she's been doing this job and how she's soon going to have her own office and how, how quickly she got promoted to become senior and be training people like myself. And I guess she was saying all of this to make the job look more glamorous or to, attract me with, how much money you could make. So that I would kind of forget about just the horrible nature of this job. And at the time, it was hooking me. I was thinking, okay, well, the job isn't great, but she's saying that she's making a lot of money. And they did say that you can make a lot of money during this job. So, let me try and hack it out. So that was the mentality that I was coming from. But the more that we were going and we were knocking on people's doors to sell this product, the more unprofessional the job seemed. So this is the bit where I was just like, something is just not right with this job. So we ended up going on to a university campus. I can't remember what the name of the university was. It was somewhere in central London. And we went on to this campus because I think one of their main people that they get for these subscriptions are students, right? And so we went into the student halls and we were knocking on the doors, and some of the students did subscribe to Netflix. So yeah, I mean, the senior professional was getting a lot of subscriptions, but it got to a point where the security guard saw us and then escorted us off the premises. Like, we were actually escorted off the premises. Like, how can this be a legit job if you're being escorted off the premises? But I was strong-willed and I got through all of it. So we got to the end of the day and it was like now at 8 p.m. at night, and we were heading back to the office for the second part of the interview, which I just thought was really strange. Like, who does interviews at like after 8 at night? So we got back into the office and I was the only one there, was a senior professional, which again, I thought was kind of strange. The reason why I say that is because in the morning when I came, there were a whole bunch of other interviewees like myself. I think there was maybe like 6 or 7 of them, and they all went out on the field with their different senior professionals. And I was the only one that came back. Now I realize it's because all of them quit on the job. They just halfway through the on-field shadowing, they were just like, no, I cannot do this. And I think I was the only one that hacked it till the end, which is why I was the only one in the office. So anyway, the second part of the interview started with the main manager. And what they do is, because whoever comes back, obviously that means that they were the ones that made it through. And so they will give you the job straight away, and they will say stuff like, you're one of the resilient ones. You're going to do great things in this business. The others weren't as strong as you. So they're really like gassing you up in your head to make you feel like you're really special and that's why you got the position. No, you were just the only one that stayed to the end. Anyway, just hearing the words that I got the job just did something for me. Just the fact, like, it didn't even matter to me that, yes, I didn't like the job or whatever. Just the fact that somebody had hired me after all that I've gone through, the constant job rejections, being unemployed for 8 months, I took the job. I was that desperate and I took the job. And they said that I start tomorrow, which again was a major red flag, which I didn't realize at the time. Usually there should be a period where they have to process your documents, reference check. They didn't even ask, if I have like a month's notice, let's say if I was working, so no, none of that. I didn't even get an employment contract, nothing, right? They just said start the next day, but I was new. I didn't know about any of this was a job world. So I was just like, oh, okay, I start tomorrow. And so I started the next day. Fast forward, now it's the next day and I've just got to the office, and this is where things get really weird. I get to the office and there are a whole bunch of other young people like me that are also doing this job as well. One thing I noticed is that most of these young people that were there, they look like they were, again, young graduates just fresh out of uni, or they were just young people that maybe dropped out of school and probably had a hard time getting jobs. And so they were here as well, but they were all just young, really impressionable people like myself. So we were all there, right? And then you've got the head manager, and they do this really weird like motivational lectures in the morning. before you go out on the field. It kind of feels like you're at a Tony Robbins event or something. So you've got like the main manager, and he's like trying to like he's like really enthusiastic, and he's just like, yeah, we're so excited to get on the field, and he's trying to, you know, build up momentum within the group. And another thing I realized, we're all standing, everyone is always standing, right? Which I thought was weird. Why is everyone standing? But it's like we all come into this big room and just we're all standing and listening to this Tony Robbins wannabe person doing this motivational speech, and they do this every morning, but it gets more weird. So then they start doing like these weird noises. You kind of weird noises, that sounds funny, but like, how do I explain it? It kind of feels like, you know, like when you're in an army camp or something, and let's say it's a bunch of men and they're getting ready for combat, and they start doing stuff like ooh, like stuff like that. So like they'll be saying these like motivational mantras or whatever, and then be like ooh afterwards, and like getting really worked up and everything. And I was just like, this is like a really male environment, because I'm a lady. I can't be sitting there shouting ooh, like it. Why would I be doing that? So I was just standing there just watching everyone like, where the hell am I? Then, you know, I get out on the field. I'm still partnered with another senior member, but I'm also, you know, doing my own door-to-door sales. And yeah, it was very hard. It was a very hard job to do. And, you know, some of the people were like really nice when they came to the door. Like I didn't get any like harsh rejections, which was nice. But yeah, the whole thing just felt very unnatural to me. It just didn't feel like something that I should be doing, where my skills should be utilized. But I was doing it all with the thing in my mind that, you know, I should be grateful that I have a job, right? So I was doing this for the whole day, but then something happened, I think at the end of that day. So it was right about 8 p.m., right? And we came back to the office, because you have to come back to the office in order to, I don't know what it is, I think, log in or do some admin stuff before you go home. And this is where I had my awakening, okay? So, so I came into the office, and I saw one of the other young graduates come in, and he was like really flustered, panicky. And I think the manager and people around him were saying, sorry, maybe tomorrow. They kept saying, sorry, maybe tomorrow to him. And I was just thinking, what's happening? What's going on with him? And so I asked that my senior person that I was with, like, what's wrong with him? And she was just like, oh, he didn't make any sales today. So, you know, he hasn't made any money. And I was like, hasn't made any money? These times I was thinking you were gonna get paid a base salary. Then they told me that it's a commission-based job, and you get paid based on how many subscriptions you get. And by subscriptions, what I actually mean is, so every time you sign someone up to a Netflix, you get like, I think, what, £15 off that particular subscription. So it's not even a lot of money. So if you add that all up, like you have to be making at least like 20 in order to be able to like live on that salary. And how many people are going to make that? So I was really shocked, and that's when it hit me, like, this is actually a scam. But this is where you're probably going to think there's actually something very wrong with me. I kept on doing the job, because I was still even though I was getting, I think it was because I was getting some subscriptions a day. So I was just like, okay, I'm getting some money in my pocket. Nowhere near what I needed. Like, if I look at how much, sometimes I'll get maybe 2, maybe 3 subscriptions a day on a good day. But I like sometimes that wouldn't even cover your travel costs for the whole like week or month. So I think after maybe 2 weeks of doing this job, and I really just sat down and calculated everything and realized that there was more money going out than going in with this job, just like traveling to this job. The energy that I was using going up and down to people's doors, the effort didn't equal how much I was getting in return. And so after, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks, I just thrown in the towel. I called them and I said, I didn't even call them, sorry. I just didn't turn up. And no one even contacted me back. And that's how I knew that this job is not real. Like, they don't even contact you back to see where you are or why you didn't turn up. They just left it there because they know that their job is not a legit job. Whew. So that's pretty much my bad experience of how I got scammed by a job on Indeed. Now, there are plenty of these job scams on Indeed. So I will be doing another video on the signs to look out for these job scams, just so that you do not fall victim. Now, because I know that it's hard out there to find jobs for graduates, especially when you don't have any experience, I do have a video that I've linked up, which is on how to get your first job. So how to get a job when you do not have experience, how you are able to still wow employees even if you don't have experience to land the job. So please watch that video if you're a graduate and you're struggling to find your first job. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my story time about my job scam on Indeed. If you found that you have a similar experience, then please put your experience below. Let us know what you've gone through. And if you're a new graduate and you found that helpful, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one on how to pass interviews, and press like if you actually found the video informative. I'll see you in the next video.